Hi, it's Kim, and this is part 2 of the GAMSAT video that I'm doing right now. This video is going to be focused more on the general test taking tips and leading up to the exam and on the exam day, what kind of mindset you can also adopt for your studies. First, I'll go through leading up to the exam, then on the exam day, then the mindset that you're going to adopt, the waiting period, and then before going into like the motivation and the conclusion aspect of this video. If you're short on time, I would recommend that you just watch the mindset topic and then the motivational words and then you go about your day. Okay, leading up to the exam. So everyone will have a different range of time set aside to prepare for this exam. I wanted to give you a few examples of a few different timelines and the preparation plan changes depending on each case. Students who have already a strong science background can, I think, get away with shorter preparations, and a solid 3 months should be enough. But for people lacking in science background, then I think it would take closer to 6 months, as you would need to go through first year chemistry content, the biology, as well as a refresh on physics if you haven't taken physics in high school as well. Those are just general ranges that I think is reasonable, but even if you have more or less time, you can always work with that. If you have just 2 weeks and medicine is really what you want, then I think you should still go for it. It's just a general outline. The point that I wanted to focus when it comes with time management is if you have a longer preparation time, then it's more beneficial to think of studying as a marathon. Whilst those with shorter preparation times can consider it as a sprint, burnout is an issue that we all want to avoid. And when feeling overwhelmed, there is nothing wrong with taking one day off if it means that the next day you'll be in a better headspace. I aimed to do a solid 4 to 5 hours of study per day, and I think this is a good balance for people who have a few months of study window and your day isn't going to be too overwhelming, and there's also enough time to catch up with your friends from time to time as well. For those working full-time or having a family, then I think it is more difficult to be solely focused on the exam, and 1 hour a day is still fine, and consistency rather than intensity gets people further than you would expect. You would also want to study efficiently, and that means passive study such as reading through notes is not recommended. But if you have no background in science, then like going through the notes and the reading through like certain textbooks or watching videos is a good starting point. But that should not be the majority of your study. Okay, one of the most important things that I would recommend is starting up an exercise routine along with your studies. So exercise is something that I always advocate for, and because I think it's just good for your overall well-being, but it's especially important when you study because there have been multiple studies where exercise results in better mood, focus, and it just makes you smarter overall. And I started running around this time because I needed all the brain power I can get to sit the GAMSAT. Studying for long periods of time can be isolating at times, and it often leads to lower moods, but exercise is a protective factor against these various mental health concerns as well. And along with the added clarity of thought that you can gain, I think it does contribute to a better performance overall, and it is an important component of being a successful test taker. I was assigned to the morning group, so I had to be at the test center by 7 a.m. And for someone who's been waking up at 9 each morning since my final undergraduate exams ended, I was extremely concerned. So for the entire month of March leading up to the day of the exam, I would practice waking up at 6 a.m. and then going for a 6:30 run. When I think back on it now, I must have been a bit crazy, but I now wake up at 7 and I still go for a run, but just in the afternoon, not that early. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you need to practice sitting the exam at the time that you're actually allocated the exam. So if you're in the morning session, then practice like studying or going through the practice problems in that time frame. Because if you're studying at like 9 or 10 p.m., but you're going to be solving these kind of problems in the morning, then it could affect your performance on the day because you haven't primed your brain into solving these kind of questions in the morning rather than later in the afternoon. So that is another thing to be aware of leading up to the exam. If it's the day before the exam, the best thing I can recommend is to be well rested and try and relax. You will need to get a good night's sleep and be in the right mindset to tackle the exam. prepare for the items that you're going to take into the exam beforehand so you don't have additional things to stress over in the morning. And also, if it's very close to the exam, then I think it is okay to lessen the amount of study that you are doing for the last few days. At this point, it's more important that you have some amount of trust in yourself that the previous weeks of preparation and study that you did will be enough. So there's the work that you have actually put in to learn the content, do the practice problems, and there's also the mental aspect of being able to stay calm under pressure, and belief in your own abilities is also somewhat important because you don't want to be too stressed out on the day. I ended up watching like 2 seasons of Lucifer over the 2 days before the actual day of the exam with a promise that I would watch the third season when I was finished. On the day of the exam, you need to get earplugs for section 2. It could depend on what kind of keyboards there are, but as soon as the timer starts and everyone starts typing furiously, it's going to sound like a hailstorm, so it's better to be prepared than freak out. This could potentially distract you, especially if you're feeling a bit nervous about section 2. There was also a bit of a short break between end of section 2 and start of section 3, and I decided to go for a quick walk and get a small coffee because I normally get a bit sleepy in the afternoon, but if you don't drink caffeine, you could just go for a quick walk or something to break it up. You're going to be sitting for a while soon after this short break, and this break is going to be highly valuable. So the mindset. There are two main mindsets that are good to adopt, and I'll briefly go into the pros and cons of each perspective. The first mindset is you really give it your all and attempt it as if you're only going to sit the GAMSAT one time. And then the second mindset that someone could adopt is you take a more relaxed approach to take the pressure off, and with the intention of still being able to sit it in the following years. For me, I took the first mindset, and the kind of mindset that you take will depend on your personality and how you react to certain situations or stress factors in your life. And why might giving yourself a limit in the number of tries be a positive thing? And for me, I knew that each failure was going to contribute to more anxiety and negative emotions associated with this admissions process. And by really giving it my all in that preparation period, if things don't work out, then I knew I could move on without any regrets because I did give it a decent shot, and that's fine. And for this reason, I personally don't agree with people who took the GAMSAT just as practice, because to me that appears to be wasting money. If you don't really prepare for it, then you don't understand which aspects or which sections that you would need to improve on, as well as the true measurement of your skills at that point and the kind of steps that you would need to take to improve if you do end up sitting it again. On the other hand, some students will perform better when you don't put too much weight onto the exam. In this second mindset, you're also allowed to think to yourself that this is not the last opportunity, and the lessened pressure can also allow you to perform better on the day, because too much stress could cloud your thinking and judgment. If the thought of this being your one single shot gives you too much stress, then this mindset is much better to adopt. You need the right amount of stress for optimal performance on the day. And at the end of the day, I think it is important to just believe in yourself and do the best you can, because there is a bit of luck involved with the kinds of questions that you get. And since you can't control that, all you can do is prepare and hope for the best. Before getting your actual scores back, it's not good to fear your scores or stress out about how you did. I would recommend at this phase in the process, just you need to live your life, and Acer will someday release the scores. But this was a very anxious period, actually, the waiting aspect. There are going to be many people retaking the exam each year, and it is something that you can also do if you believe that this path is the right path for you. In this case, when you're constantly taking it again, my recommendation is that you don't put your life on hold whilst preparing for medicine. Your identity does not revolve around this one exam, and there needs to be other things going on in your life, whether it's still keeping in touch with friends or having a part-time job or something like that. If you have a second job, like a proper full-time job that you wouldn't mind doing, then it is something that you should be doing whilst also studying on the side while preparing for the GAMSAT. And if you want to get married, then there's nothing stopping you, and I think you should still go for it. In this section, what I wanted to say is don't put your life on hold because of this one exam, and your worth is not determined by whatever score you get. Now, heading into the conclusion and some motivational words. Regardless of the outcome, it is good to put things into perspective. On the day I set my exam, I did a small celebration for myself with no idea of the results. And you must realize that by sitting the exam, it means that you had the courage to pursue your goals. And people who fear failure or making drastic changes would not even try or bother leaving their jobs because of fear of failure. And it's quite an achievement to have set this exam in the first place. I think it's more of the act of having worked hard and then you set the exam and then you can do. I think it's worth a small celebration. You also put yourself in a position to compete with a lot of bright people and doing something that's difficult that could be out of your comfort zone, and there is inherent value in that. Working towards something difficult often forces ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves and give us the opportunity to live up to our potential, which is pretty valuable, right? And that's how I felt during the 6:30 a.m. morning runs. Oh my gosh, I no longer have the motivation to do that now that the exam is over. I'm still going on runs, but just not that early. But I can say that I liked the me when I was not being lazy and working towards something, rather than the me who would wake up at 9 a.m. because there was no reason to get up that early. So it is something to think about. Like, trying to achieve something does push ourselves to be better and live up to our potential. And lastly, I just want to say good luck to everyone and thank you for watching. I started preparing for December of 2020 and it has been a year, and I felt like making a video because I was feeling a bit sentimental about this entire process. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any further questions, then feel free to leave in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. And I'll see you guys in the next video.